I'm talking today about earth magic. It's useful to talk about magic in bits. So we're looking at earth, air, fire, water. We're looking at the creative principle, developing sensitivity, and the appreciation of synchronicity as 7 different dimensions of magic. Well, of course, you can't really separate magic out other than conceptually. It's a holistic study. But it's useful for us to concentrate on the different parts, the components that we need to include. So when we think about what is earth magic, it's physicality. Whatever we are doing in a physical sense is the final grounding of the process. A lot of people appreciate more the glamour, the glitter, the sexiness of magic. But actually, if you do it properly, then the final result is made physical in some way. And none of us can avoid the practice of magic. It's the functionality of existence. It's just that we don't call it that. But what is useful is to notice that whatever your strategies and your abilities and your environment and your involvements, whatever they are, at the end of the day, the physical body that you have is the register of how well you're doing. Physical health, strength, well-being, feeling comfortable with yourself within your body is evidence of a magical practice. So such things as eating well, doing good exercise, perhaps involving yourself in a sport, particularly perhaps an aggressive sport, a martial art, or a sport which endangers you. Because for us to be able to cope with that aspect of life, the life is actually ruthless, and we have to be strong about that. We have to make sure that we don't die, and we're not overwhelmed by those of greater physical strength than us. We have to keep the wolf from the door. What that means is not only wild animals, for which we need walls, and elements, which we need a roof, but also hunger. We need to work out how to get our food. And all of this doesn't sound very magical, and yet it is. It is. The first foundation point that we're discussing here is that you have to get your life in order. And that actually involves very simple day-to-day magic practices. And that's how we learn how to cope with life, because if we don't, we die. After a certain period of being parented, it's actually quite a dangerous thing to be alive on the planet. So we have to work out our strategies, and those are actually the components of the strongest aspect of your magic. Are you coping with your life? Are you free of debt? Do you have an income? Do you have your food and your security needs all worked out? If you don't, then sort that out first. Don't start practicing magic until you know how to keep the wolf from the door. It's dangerous. It's just silly. And it's not going to get you anywhere. You're not going to be able to do it. So that's the first thing. It's very obvious. Now, the second thing would be to do with the lessons that we learn by having to cope with the survival needs of life. The lessons of the earth plane, physicality. Now, these are important qualities that we can develop within ourselves. And these are qualities such as tolerance, because we have to live with other people and they're not seeing things the way we see them. Limitation. It's not as easy to manifest your desire in the physical realm. We're slowed down so considerably that most people don't get all that they desire. There's a limitation to come to terms with. And the development of patience and acceptance, because we are limited, these are important magical qualities. The development It's about the development of compassion, because we notice other people aren't getting what they desire either. That's another quality that develops because of our limitation in the earth plane. So these life lessons are very important aspects of magical earth realities, and survival questions test us, they examine us, and therefore they build our strengths. Now, the obvious thing about the earth dimension is that it's bounded by two things, space and time. We are at a particular point at a particular time, and we're not anywhere else. That's so simple, but it's profound. And the whole Celtic spiritual philosophy was based on the knowledge of space and time. Where we are makes a difference to what we are. And it certainly makes a difference to the quality of the magic that you can practice. So we have on one level such things as our own space, the space that we control, home perhaps, or some other place that's under our supervision, and we can guard that space, we can create boundaries around it. There are places which inspire us to beauty, such as places in nature, obviously, and other ways in which we can experience beauty. A waterfall, a lake at midnight, illuminated by the moon. Certain places are very magical. Underground caves, forests. These have the ability to bring about a change of atmosphere within us, a physical change. Our bodies are different in these places. And awareness of that, an ability to choose the right place for the right magic, is an important part of our concentrations. So too with time. Different times have different qualities. As the sun is rising, dawn, that's an amazingly powerful time. And in certain places, so is sundown. They change our atmosphere. Times of the year are very different from one another. There's different seasons. Certain festivals are celebrated. There's a lot of energy around certain days of the year. Easter, for example, Easter Sunday is one of the most powerful energies that we can find in time. And we can celebrate the quarter points, in other words, the solstice points and the equinox points, and the points halfway between those, which are called the cross-quarter points, which are well beloved in paganism as Imbolc, Beltane, Lunasa, and Samhain, usually pronounced a bit differently as Imbolc, Beltane, Lammas, and Samhain. These places in time change what we can do, and we must know them to optimize our magic. Space and time, then, that's very important. And we can pull our consciousness into space-time by building an altar. I think earth magic centers around the altar. We bring in indicators of the other elements. We build the altar in a certain place at a certain time, and it sometimes has temporary nature. We then break it up, use it for the purposes that we have, and then disentangle the pieces. So an altar registers that we are doing magic, and we are doing it here, and we are doing it now. That makes a difference to how we are physically. So an altar registers space and time. Now moving on, we have the idea of astrology giving us a clue as to the qualities of Earth. The 3 signs in the zodiac, Capricorn, Taurus, and Virgo, represent different attitudes of Earth. Capricorn is that which tends to rise. So we have the mountain, stone upon stone upon stone, stone being born out of the volcano, which has a vertical dimension, into the Taurus dimension, which is earth that is fixed. It doesn't move, it's supportive. It's what we build upon. It's the meadow. And Virgo, which is earth that moves from side to side, the mutable quality of earth, and that's vegetation, and therefore food and healing herbs and those kind of things associated with Virgo. So let's consider now the qualities within ourselves equivalent to those 3 earth mysteries. The Capricorn mystery is moving up. Capricorn types very often are ambitious. Goats go up to the top of the mountain, associated with Capricorn, of course. Unicorn is also associated with Capricorn and raises itself above the mountain. It can move even beyond it. It's a vertical idea, the idea of being able to fly. And the unicorn is not substantively different from Pegasus in mythology. So this idea of Earth moving up and down, there's this verticality to Earth. We build up. And this gives us the clue that if we go to the top of a mountain, we're going to feel very differently about the Earth dimension. Just imagine that for a minute. You're on top of a mountain. You climbed there, and you've used your physical strength and endurance and fortitude and stubbornness and determination, and you got to the top of the mountain, overcoming the Earth. That's what Capricorn teaches us. We can overcome the Earth limitations by finding true grit. Saturn helps us with this. Get the job done. Do it properly. Keep according to the rules and you'll be fine. There is a magic to Saturn. Those people that are afraid of Saturn or bored or disappointed by Saturn, not getting the Earth magic within Saturn. There's something about being on top of life. And Capricorn gives us that possibility of the top of the mountain, being on top of your life, being in control of everything. Now the Taurus principle is emblemized by the bull, and the bull just eats grass, basically. And it's fixed, it's slow, and it's very peaceful. It has the capacity to be ferocious and volcanic in its anger, the bull. And Taurus has that. But our quality within of being routine and basic. I eat grass. That's what I do. I'm content with that. That's the Taurus mystery. Very stable. Very slow. And that supports whatever is done upon it. Virgo, of course, within ourselves is the ability to go out and bring back the food. Involving ourselves with the environment so that we can pick our fruit, kill our animals if necessary, and so on. So Virgo's relationship with Earth is quite dynamic in a sense. Now all of these 3 qualities, whether we're an Earth sign or not, are present within all of us. There's a part of us that wants something and we have to do work to get it. Part of us that wants to sit still and enjoy what we've got. A part of us that needs to go out and do things so that we can actually keep our lives together. So it's worthwhile just thinking about those things as an aspect of Earth magic. This is the practical expression of your magical power. And these develop as qualities within the personality. The strongly earthy person typically has good boundaries. They know what they can do, what they can't do, what they will accept, what they won't accept, and they're clear about stating them. And this is true of all the three earth signs, and it's true for all people in some way or another. We've all got the capacity to set limits. It's just that some of us go a long way before we actually speak up, for whatever reasons. Why we do that is either we choose to do that or we have no choice. But we all have boundaries in the end, and we say, no, that's not acceptable. And somebody with a high degree of earth consciousness is very clear about saying where the boundaries are, what my identity is, who I am, what my choices are, and this is the real deal. Those are the earthy qualities of a person. So when it comes to what we call earth magic itself, we've spoken of the altar, and the altar has the job of rooting us at a certain space in time with an atmosphere that goes along with the content, shall we say, the things that we include within our altar. They create within us an atmosphere, and that's a physical experience. If the atmosphere does not touch you on what is called the somatic level, the embodied level, then it hasn't worked. And we have to anchor ourselves to our magical tools and attitudes, so that when we use these tools, we find a certain state of being. And these are the represented by the qualities I mentioned earlier of the earth, the earthy kind of perseverance and tolerance and acceptance. Those are the qualities of the earth magician, who lives a peaceful, slow, rhythmic life. And the slowness of that, the easiness of that, has tremendous charisma. It's more typified by older people. Your grandfather may have had a slow way of thinking, a slow way of talking, a slow way of walking, doing things at exactly the same time in exactly the same way. And, it's easy for a young person to think little of that, but actually it's got its own magic. It's very powerful to do that, to hold your life into this slow rhythm. Now, the other couple of things I'll mention, sound is good, especially the drum. The drum is a grounding force, and if you've got like a guided journey or whatever, you move off into the other dimensions, the drum will pull you back and anchor you into the earth plane. And that has great importance for some people who can space out in a dangerous way, actually. So the drum and other certain types of musical instruments, percussion is the best though. That grounds us. And of course we've also got sigils. Now sigils are diagrams, shall we say, and we're using the elven star, the 7-pointed star, as the sigil for our work, so that it has a geometric attitude to it. The magic of geometry is an aspect of space magic, the magic of space, because it takes our attention from one place to another in a clear line, and then another, and then another. So there is established path working by the operation of the movement of lines on paper. And that path working becomes eventually, shall we call it, embodied on a very subtle level, but embodied nonetheless in our neural pathways. So there's a physicality to that. And the sigil is the representation of our neural pathways. And we can walk this. If you build a sigil on the land, as they used to do thousands of years ago. The most famous is the Cretan labyrinth, Crete. The island of Crete gave rise to this labyrinth. you walk it in a certain pattern, and that develops some memories of a state that you do again and again and again and again, and it gets you into that state again and again. So we can use the externalization of our neural pathways as sigils, which we can either see on paper and remember it, or we can walk it even on the land, and that's a very powerful exercise. Finally, what I would suggest is that writing is a more physical operation for recording your experiences and ideas and knowledge than typing. So in our current era, we're moving into typing now to express our ideas electronically. But it's really good to write in a book and to develop what is called a book of secrets, or a grimoire, which records everything that you want to make special. And this act of writing it beautifully, neatly, clearly into a book, which is kept in a lovely condition and is made beautiful and is precious to you, and is probably something that you don't show to people at all, certainly not often. That operation of grounding your ideas, grounding your magic into something physical, is surprisingly powerful. It clears the mind, so there's an air element to this. It's kind of not only an earth thing, but as soon as you work out what you think and what you feel and what you have experienced, and you try to put that into physical form, even only in the form of a written word, it changes your experience. It deepens your sense of what you have done and what it means to you when you write it. So I would say the Book of Secrets is an earth magic tool. So, earth magic. Bring your ideas into physical form in these ways. But the essence of it is space and time. Know what you're doing now, here. Here and now is the only reality. So space and time is our magic.